The driver mess over a Red Bull this week has sent shockwaves through the sport. The decision to remove Liam Lawson from his race seat and replace him with Yuki Tsunoda for the Japanese Grand Prix has shocked fans and the media. Even by Red Bull's erratic standards, removing a driver after 2 races is a surprisingly quick decision. His poor performances in those 2 races expose problems at Red Bull, which the team aren't equipped to deal with according to Helmut Marko. But while he has admitted there are problems with the car, he's also criticised the 2 drivers involved. Today I'll check out what he's been saying and why the impact of the loss of Adrian Newey is now being felt. So don't go anywhere. On Thursday morning, Red Bull officially confirmed the news that the whole world knew was coming. Liam Lawson would be stepped down from Red Bull for the Japanese Grand Prix next weekend. In his place would be Yuki Tsunoda, who drove the first 2 races of the season for the Racing Bulls. Being able to interchange drivers between an A and B team is a luxury that only Red Bull enjoys, but they've never used the flexibility and options it provides in such an aggressive manner before. Red Bull's position as the only organization in the sport with 2 teams has always been contentious. Their ability to sell parts between the 2 teams has been a problem for their opponents for years, with McLaren's Zak Brown being the most vocal objector in recent years. Having 2 teams also gives them the ability to swap drivers in and out of the team that are meant to be challenging for the Constructors' Championship. They can train drivers, get them experience at the Racing Bulls where there is less pressure, and then bring them to Red Bull when they're ready. It removes the risk for Red Bull of promoting junior drivers, something which other teams on the grid have to take on. It's a risk that Mercedes have taken on Antonelli this season, or that McLaren took on Piastri a few years ago. That gives Red Bull a competitive advantage in the team championship. Or at least it should, if they were using the advantage correctly. But when they promoted Liam Lawson, a driver with 11 races experience as a stand-in, over Yuki Tsunoda, a driver with 4 full seasons and 90 Grand Prix weekends worth of experience, they made a mistake. But rather than handing the New Zealander more time to acclimatise, Red Bull's leadership felt it needed to act swiftly to change its fortunes and see if the more experienced Tsunoda could get better results, with the Japanese driver making his Red Bull debut on home soil in Suzuka next week. It is a decision that only Red Bull have the luxury of making, and it will bring complaints about Red Bull having 2 teams from their competitors. Speaking before the decision was officially announced, Dr. Helmut Marko, the Red Bull advisor, said that Lawson couldn't recover from his difficult Australia outing and admitted promoting the 23-year-old early was not the right thing to do. Yuki was too inconsistent, Marko told OE24 about Red Bull's call to initially pick Lawson for 2025. That's why we unanimously decided in favor of Lawson. But he wasn't able to perform under the greater pressure right from the first day in Australia. Then he went into a downward spiral. It's like a battered boxer. It's very difficult to get out of it. From that point of view, it was a mistake. In Australia, he had a turbo failure in the 3rd practice session, losing mileage as a result. But of course, what he has done so far has not been enough. We need a strong second driver, if only for the team strategy. Calling Lawson a battered boxer is hardly fair. He hasn't even been given the chance to grow into the team, never mind recover from his poor start to the season. And it isn't like he put himself in that position. He hasn't been battered by his opposition. Red Bull have hamstrung him with a car that Max Verstappen has labelled as difficult to drive. Max even said that the Red Bull engineers are at fault for making a car that only the 4-time world champion can drive. For Yuki, what has happened in the first 2 races of the season that has made Red Bull feel like he's found the consistency they thought he was lacking at the first 90 Grand Prix weekends with the organisation? There have been a lot of mixed messages from Marko during this driver switch. Before the swap, Marko told Autosport, "Yuki is a different Yuki from the years before. He is in the form of his life. Obviously, he changed his management. He has a different approach. He's more mature. It took a while, but now it looks like it's working. If Yuki struggles at Red Bull, which he likely will until upgrades come to the car, then hopefully he'll be given more time than Lawson was." Speaking of upgrades to the car, they can't come quick enough for Red Bull. But with new technical regulations for next year, the team will have to balance their expenditure on this year's car with developing for the new regulations, which means they'll be very limited in what they can do. Yuki and Max might be stuck with a car that is a pig to drive for the rest of the season, especially with the loss of Adrian Newey starting to be felt. Before I talk about that though, if you're enjoying the video and want to catch all the news ahead of the Japanese Grand Prix, then make sure to press the like button and subscribe to F1 Reverse. Thanks a lot. At the start of the current regulation cycle in 2022, Red Bull were producing the best cars on the grid by far. The 2023 car was the most dominant in F1 history, winning 95.8% of the races that season. Some of the credit for those cars was rightly given to their technical guru Adrian Newey, whose history in Formula 1 as a designer is unmatched. However, with the team changing since the death of Dietrich Mateschitz, Newey became unhappy with the management and decided to leave the team in May of 2024, joining Aston Martin this month after serving his gardening leave. Christian Horner has been insistent since Adrian left that he wasn't a big part of the team and that his impact on the car wasn't as great as everyone gave him credit for. However, it's impossible to ignore the fact that since he's left, the Red Bull cars have become worse. They have lost their performance advantage and have only remained a competitor for podium finishes thanks to Max Verstappen's brilliance. Marko has now admitted that the lack of performance in the RB21 is related to the fact Newey is no longer with Red Bull. "Of course we're missing a man like that," said Marko. "A Newey is a Newey. He isn't someone that Red Bull can just replace by promoting internally. While knowledge and skills can be learnt, Newey clearly has a talent for car design that can't be matched by just observing his work and copying his methods. Now is the time that the technical team in Milton Keynes need to step up and prove that what Horner was saying is true. They need to prove that Newey wasn't the one keeping things together and that they can flourish without him." Verstappen travelled to the Milton Keynes factory on Wednesday for a deep dive into the RB21's issues with the team's technical staff. That meeting was primarily about Max sitting down with the engineers and going through the next step, Marko explained. "The aim is to calmly address Max's wishes and criticism. It's true that the RB21 is difficult to drive. The Racing Bulls is easier to handle and very fast on a qualifying lap, but in the race it is clearly behind the Red Bull car. Red Bull need to be careful here. It is trying to build the car toward Verstappen's desires for more oversteer, which put them in this position in the first place. They slingshotted past the car that Verstappen wanted and ended up with something that is so front-end heavy it has all the poise and balance of an overloaded wheelbarrow being run down a cobbled street. Solving those problems isn't going to happen overnight. F1 car parts take weeks and even sometimes months to design, test and then build. It could quite easily be mid-May and the start of the European leg by the time Red Bull can bring in any parts to try and fix the undrivable car. That is 6 races that they'll be falling further behind McLaren and 6 races that Verstappen won't be able to fight for a race win. It's going to be a rough few months at Red Bull. What do you think about Marko's comments about Yuki and Liam? Is the loss of Adrian Newey being reflected in Red Bull's year-long struggle with an unbalanced car? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.